She was born into royalty with the name gifted to her by her step-grandmother, the only daughter of Maximilian of Austria and Mary of Burgundy. But her happy family life was short-lived, as her mother passed away when she was just 2 years old. Her younger brother Philip the Handsome succeeded their mother as sovereign of the Low Countries, with her father as his regent. In a strange twist of fate, the same year her mother died, her father promised her hand in marriage to Dauphin Charles, the son of King Louis XI of France, when she was just 3 years old at the time. But fate had other plans, as Louis XI's life ebbed away soon after, leaving the young girl to be raised not as the Queen of France, but to become something even more remarkable. So join me now as we look back on the unbelievable life of Margaret of Austria. Margaret was born on the 10th of January 1480. Her upbringing was blessed by the guiding hands of two noble women, Madame de Segrais, a devoted governess, and Anne de Beaujeu, the regent of France and Charles's loving sister. Under their watchful care, she received a unique education that would shape her destiny and prepare her for greatness. Margaret was not alone in her studies. She received education alongside several noble children, including Louise of Savoy. Even though her father had arranged an engagement to Charles, she suddenly developed a genuine affection for him, despite their union being purely political. But destiny had a cruel twist for Margaret. In 1491, Charles shattered their engagement and forcibly wedded Margaret's former stepmother, Anne, Duchess of Brittany. The day Margaret returned to Anne of Brittany's court was a moment of reckoning. Her spirit was filled with a deep desire for retribution, but nothing could erase the pain and bitterness that had taken root in her soul. Maximilian gazed upon the horizon, and his heart filled with determination and ambition. He yearned for a grand union, a majestic bond that would join his empire with the great rulers Queen Isabella I of Castile and King Ferdinand II of Aragon. For Maximilian, this union would mean nothing less than eternal glory, and he knew with unyielding certainty how to make it happen. Negotiations began to bind their heirs, John, Prince of Asturias, and Margaret, the daughter of Maximilian. Margaret left the Netherlands for Spain in late 1496, but fate had other plans. As the ship to Spain hit a treacherous storm in the Bay of Biscay, Margaret was convinced that her engagement to the Prince of Asturias was doomed. In the face of her impending demise, Margaret scribbled her epitaph in haste, anxious that her journey's end might come before she could articulate her final words. Here lies Margaret, the willing bride, twice married, but a virgin when she died. But Margaret was a survivor, and she made it through the storm. She married Prince John on the 3rd of April 1497 in Burgos Cathedral, and they enjoyed a brief but happy marriage. Tragically, John died of a fever just 6 months later, leaving Margaret pregnant with their child, but she gave birth to a stillborn daughter on the 2nd of April 1498, and then returned home to the Netherlands the following year. Back home, Margaret found herself facing a new challenge. It was suggested that she teach Catherine of Aragon French, and dutifully took on the task. But it wasn't long before her attention turned to her future. In 1501, she married Philibert II, Duke of Savoy, a man whose realm played a decisive role in Italy's rivalry between France and the Habsburgs. Their relationship was stable, and they enjoyed their time together. But tragedy struck once again, and Philibert died of pleurisy in 1504. Margaret was devastated and threw herself out of a window in grief. Fortunately, she survived and was eventually persuaded to bury her husband. But Margaret's love for her deceased husband knew no bounds. So devoted was she to him that she had his heart embalmed, cherished it as a precious memento. After Queen Isabella died in 1504, in 1507 Margaret was named governor of the Low Countries and guardian of Charles, along with her nieces Eleanor, Isabella and Mary. In a triumph of will, Margaret broke the barriers of gender, becoming the first and only woman ever elected as the ruler, a title forever confirmed in 1509 by the Representative Assembly. Margaret's successful career broke new ground for women rulers, acting as an intermediary between her father and her nephew's subjects in the Netherlands. Charles appointed her as his Governor-General in gratitude for her services in 1520, and she served as a diplomat, peacemaker, guardian and educator of future rulers. Despite the storm of Louis XII's attempts to regain control of certain territories, Margaret stood steadfast. She played a vital role in keeping the provinces together, fulfilling the loud demands for peace from the Netherlandish states. Margaret was embroiled in a fierce struggle for control over the county of Flanders. With the French king demanding homage from Charles, she knew peace would not come quickly. Amidst the tumultuous winds of war, Margaret always retained sight of her mission for peace. Margaret remained steadfast in her resolve, and in 1511 she joined forces with England and laid siege to Venlo, only to face another challenge as Charles of Egmont invaded Holland. Despite the odds stacked against her, Margaret refused to back down, signing a treaty with Charles in 1513. Through it all, she remained a beacon of hope and a symbol of strength, inspiring those around her never to give up the fight for what they believed in. Margaret played a crucial role in bringing together the participants of the Holy League, targeting France in 1512. With her beloved Maximilian gone, Margaret found solace in her nephew Charles, guiding him towards a future of greatness. Together they formed a plan to secure Charles's place in history as Holy Roman Emperor, using every tool from diplomacy to bribery. Margaret knew that the election of Charles would secure the future of the Habsburg dynasty and ensure their continued dominance. She played a crucial role in his election, defeating the candidacy of French King Francis I and securing her nephew's place on the throne of the Holy Roman Empire. Inheriting long-standing conflicts with the kings of France, Charles V faced immense challenges as emperor, but Margaret, with her unwavering spirit and a sharp mind, held off the French forces of the League of Cognac for years, and then she worked her diplomatic magic again, negotiating the Ladies' Peace. In a moment of reunion with her sister-in-law, Louise of Savoy, Margaret ended a war France could no longer sustain. She allowed the people of these regions to breathe free and thrive in the light of their sovereignty. Margaret's cunning and determination earned her admiration and respect, and her legacy as a formidable diplomat and stateswoman lived on. Margaret's remarkable talent for business helped maintain the prosperity of the Low Countries, which was an essential source of income for the imperial treasury. She skillfully negotiated trade agreements with England and Denmark, which brought huge profits and ensured the regular grain supply into the Netherlands. Despite her family ties with Christian II, Margaret placed the economic interests of the Netherlands above other dynastic interests, which led her to refuse to support him. Instead, she provided funds and war supplies for her nephew's troops and consolidated Habsburg forces' hold over several regions. However, Margaret's reign was not without internal conflict, especially in the face of the Protestant Reformation, which began to take hold in the north of the Netherlands and led to the burning of the first martyrs in 1523. As Margaret of Austria settled into her role as governor of the Netherlands, she decided to make the Hof van Savoy in Mechelen her new residence. However, she soon found it too small and began an ambitious expansion project in 1507. Under Margaret's patronage, beauty and art flourished. With a discerning eye, the governess sought the most skilled painters to fill her court with life and colour. Margaret also had a rich library containing works by famous authors, and her court was frequented by renowned humanists such as Erasmus and Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, who dedicated his work to the nobility of women to her. Margaret of Austria, the beloved governess of the Netherlands, lived a life full of grandeur and accomplishment. She oversaw a prosperous nation, kept peace among her people, and raised her beloved family in the lavish Hof van Savoy. But fate is cruel, and even the most remarkable individuals are not immune to its whims. In the twilight of her life, Margaret suffered a fatal injury, a mere shard of glass cut in her flesh, causing her excruciating pain. Although Margaret wasn't fazed at first by her injury, fate had other plans. Gradually, gangrene crept in and overwhelmed her body. Despite her brave face, Margaret's heart sank as she realised the inevitability of her fate. With great trepidation, she finally submitted to the amputation of her leg, hoping against hope that it might not be in vain. As she lay on her bed surrounded by those who she held dear, she knew that her time was running out. But Margaret, always the dutiful ruler, refused to leave this world without ensuring that her beloved Netherlands would be in good hands. She designated her nephew Charles V as her sole heir and penned a letter urging him to maintain peace with their neighbours. And then, as the night fell, the doctors came to her bedside. In a last-ditch effort to ease her pain, they gave her opium, but the drug proved too strong, and she never woke up. Margaret of Austria, the great governess, breathed her last breath sometime between midnight and 1 o'clock on the 1st of December 1530. The nation she ruled and loved mourned her passing, and her body was laid to rest beside her second husband in the royal monastery of Brou that she had commissioned. Today, a statue of Margaret stands next to St. Rumbold's Cathedral in Mechelen, a testament to the legacy of a woman who led her people with grace and intellect, and whose presence brought peace and prosperity to her land. Her story continues to inspire and captivate all who hear it. She was a shining example of the power and strength of a woman in a world dominated by men.